if your teachers are interested to join a session, please ask them to send to join this link. I am again going to share a message in the chat. Share this message with your peer teachers and join a session as soon as possible. Okay?
Yes, Mamta ma'am is here.
Thank you. Good evening and Jai Hind everyone, and sorry for the technical glitch which I just faced. So I could see many familiar faces in the session today, and hope you will get a good review of your lesson plan and a way how you can design your lesson plan and take that in the class. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. So as you all know that today's session is on designing a quality lesson plan, which will help you to understand your lesson and your student well. So if you have any query, keep it with you. And at the end of the session, I will take your queries one by one. Okay. So what is a lesson plan? You all know as a teacher that a lesson plan is a roadmap, is a guideline on which you take up your classes. Okay, so a lesson plan is the instructor's roadmap of what a student need to learn and how it will be done effectively during the class time. So every teacher must work on her or his lesson plan well. Why? You will get to know in further slides. So a lesson plan gives the structure of what do you want your student to learn, what teaching and learning activities will you use in your class, and how will you check the understanding of your student, whether they have understood the lesson or not. So this is the basic structure of a lesson plan, which is to be prepared before you enter the class. Now, what is the three main component of a lesson plan of a successful and a good and balanced lesson plan? So a good lesson plan must have learning objectives, learning activities, and the assessment. Now, what is learning objective? Learning objective is why are you teaching your lesson? What will happen? What is the, why are you taking this? What is the objective? When you are doing any lesson or any activity or anything for that purpose, there must be an objective, right? So in a lesson plan, you must be having a very well defined learning objective. And learning activities, what are the planned activities that you will use in your class to reach to the learning objective, right? And the assessment is how you can understand whether your students have understood the topic or not. So what are the various assessment or activities of assessment what you will be doing in your class? So one by one, I'll take you through all these three components. So this is the three main domain on what a teacher works. Okay, the first one is planning before the class, then during the class, and after the class. So a lesson plan must have all these three avenues, must have all these three components and factors. Okay, so before the class, what do you mean by before the class? Yes, before entering your class is identifying the learning objective, planning of the specific learning activities, creating a realistic timeline, and planning for lesson closure. So today in this session, I will be dealing more on the before the class, and I'll be touching a little bit of during the class and after the class section also. But my involvement and influence will be on the first topic, which is before the class, because the topic today is lesson designing, and lesson designing is always done before the class. Now, outline of the learning objective. You must be hearing me saying learning objective, because this is the framework of your lesson plan. This is the main theme around which your lesson revolves. That is, what is the main theme? What do I mean by that? Because if you are taking a topic in your class, you must be sure of why are you doing that, right? So that is your learning objective. So what the learner will know or will be able to do after the lesson rather than topic. Your topic is the, the first point, but then why are you taking that topic in your class? So if I take an example of maybe a noun for say in English, or maybe living and non-living thing for EVS. So why do you want your student to know about living and non-living? What will happen? What will be they able to do after learning the topic of this living and non-living? That means, so you must have that in your mind. So what will happen? Your student will be able to maybe identify the living and non-living objects or things, right? Your student will be able to differentiate between living and non-living. So these are your learning objective. So a good learning objective must be achievable task. You cannot keep anything which is out of your reach, right? And always look for the learning objective which you can achieve at the end of the day. Okay, at the end of that 45 minutes, if you have a class of 45 minutes and you get 30 minutes of a class to teach, so you must be able to achieve that learning objective. So that is why it has to be achievable. Okay, so when you're planning learning objective, just think that is it achievable or not. Contradict with your own thoughts. This is very important for a teacher when she is going to take the lesson in the class. Now describe learning goals. What are your main aim of the lesson? Why are you taking this lesson, and why and what are you going to teach in the class? Next is measurable. Can you see that? Is it measurable? The learning objective, is it measurable? Will you be able to identify how many students of your class are able to now do that, are able to list the the nouns, or I can identify or can differentiate between the living and non-living or not? Is it measurable? And is it fair and equitable? Now what do I mean by fair and equitable is your learning objective or your lesson or the planned activities is for each and every child of your class, or it is truly meant for the the creamy student or the brighter one, or is your activities planned in such a way so that it involves all your students, or it got the attention of all the students of the class or not? So this is fair and equitable. Moving ahead, now I don't know how many of you have joined the Bloom taxonomy session, or how many of you know about the Bloom taxonomy session. So or Bloom taxonomy, if you will go through the Bloom taxonomy, you will get to see a pyramid, okay, which says higher order and lower order thinking skills and how you can frame the questions using Bloom taxonomy. So I have taken this slide from the Bloom taxonomy thing, and this helps you to identify that verbs which can help you to write your learning objective or learning outcomes. Okay, so like recall, a student will be able to recall, or student will be able to name the living and non-living things. Okay, the student will be able to, if we move ahead and we see examine, the student will be able to explain the meaning of maybe photosynthesis. Okay, student will be able to discuss, student will be able to outline or apply. If you say, student will be able to use, okay, use the knowledge and apply into the real life. Student will be able to analyze or compare or contrast. Okay, student will be able to compare living and non-living things. Student will be able to evaluate, okay, justify, recommend or rate. And the higher order thinking, if we move, then the student will be able to create something new with the understanding of the topic, right? So these are the few verbs which you can use. If I'm giving you few minutes to just quickly click the photo, okay, because this is going to help you a lot in the class while designing your lesson plan, right? So these are various verbs. Now moving ahead to develop the introduction. Now you have created your lesson plan, but you have identified the topic. You have also identified the learning objective. Now, what is the introduction? What is the way you are going to introduce this topic in your class? So always make sure that you are creating or you are introducing your topic in the class in a creative way. Now, what do I mean by creative way? Creative way is in a way your child takes interest. Okay, in a way you probe your children to reach to the topic without you initiating, without you telling them what the topic is. Okay, suppose you are going to talk about maybe your country. Okay, so for a country you need to have the conversation revolving around in the class in the introduction phase, which says you about the which helps your student identify that this is the topic, which is our country. Okay, so develop a creative introduction to the topic. Design activities to check previous learning. It is also very important for a teacher to check for previous understanding, because as a teacher you must know the benchmark from where you need to pick the topic. Okay, from where you need to pick that lesson. Maybe you have prepared your lesson plan in such a way that you think your student do not know, but then when you go to the class and you find that, oh, my kids know it, okay, my children know it. So as a teacher you need to be very flexible and very clear with what other activity you can use in the class. Otherwise your class will become monotonous and boring and not engaging. So you need to think creative way and creative introduction so that your children are hooked with the topic. They derive the lesson topic by themselves. Now plan the specific learning activities. So when I'm saying I'm talking about learning activities, so this is the center of the lesson plan. After the learning objective have been derived and had been, jotted down, then comes the learning activities. So learning activities makes the base of your lesson plan. Like what is the procedure you are going to take your lesson in the classroom. So prepare several different ways of explaining the material by real life examples to catch the attention of the student. So why I'm telling real life examples is when you use real life examples in your class, your students are tend to relate the topic well. Okay, so suppose if you are taking noun in the class, so ask your student to look around in the class and identify few objects. Okay, name few objects. So they may say chair, table, book, pencil, right? Maybe cupboard, friend, girl, boy. So all these will come as a real life experience. So if you are talking the same again about noun, you can ask, what are the places you have visited? Okay. What are the, have you ever went to the zoo? What are the animals you have seen in the zoo? Or do you have a pet? So this is all your, connecting the topic with the real life examples. This is only I'm giving the example. You can use it in any of the, topics. Now estimates how much time. So in a class, in a 45 minutes class or 40-minute class, you do not get 40 minutes for teaching, right? You have your introduction, you have your wrap up. So in between, suppose you get 30 minutes to teach a concept. So you need to again bifurcate that 30 minutes into different sections. Now what are that different section? Now introduction, you must have planned some activities for them, like group activities or individual activities. So estimate how much time you have in your hand. Identify strategies that check for understanding. So during that period, as I said, you need to identify that how much they have understood. Now, while designing the learning activities, introspect the following. Now, this is again before doing the planning, right? I haven't taken your lesson into the class. Mind it, this is all I am taking before the class, the first section which I just showed you, right? So what will I do to explain the topic? So you need to think, okay? You need to also relate this topic with your class level. So if you are in a class, you know your student well, so you need to identify what is the process you are going to explain the topic. Maybe the lesson plan, what you have framed, works well in maybe section A, but doesn't go well in section C, right? So you need to change the strategy and you need to plan the learning activities as per your standard of your students. Okay, what will I do to illustrate the topic in a different way? Suppose you went to the class and your students aren't ready to learn. Okay, they aren't ready to listen to you. So you have to have the plan B ready, right? Because you have to change your strategies too. So how can I engage students in the topic? So as I told, a good lesson plan has to be involving all your students, right? So you cannot work with a handful of students. So how are you going to engage a group of the students? So maybe you are going to plan a group activity or some group discussion so that everyone is involved. So think in that direction. What are some relevant life examples you are going to use which your students can relate to, right? If suppose you are teaching seasons and they haven't seen snowfall, so and if you are asking any question about snowfall or maybe volcano for that purpose, they cannot relate it, right? So that is why real life example choosing that is also very important. They must have seen in the videos or somewhere, or you never know they have seen a video or not. So just keep realistic real life examples which they have observed and felt, so that they connect well in the class. What will student need to do to help them understand the topic better? So again, planning of the activity is very important. Learning activities may include, now here are a few examples of the learning activities, right? Interaction with content. Now what is interaction with content? When you are speaking and you are giving ample avenues to the student to interact, okay, to communicate, to give their ideas. Because teachers in a class, when you go, it is not one way, okay? It has to be the two-way communication so that your students are engaged, right? To keep your student engaged, plan your class in such a way so that there is two-way communication, and more or less teachers speaking less and students are speaking more. Okay, now interaction with digital content. Now after the lockdown, when we have come back to our system in our classes, we are taking lots of content, right? Digital contents which involves videos, audio, graphics. So what avenues you are creating to them to interact with the digital content. So also make sure that you have different students in your classroom which have different learning abilities. Okay, few learn by singing, few learn by having hands-on experience on something. So you have to look on all these avenues in your classes, to grab the attention and to let the understanding flow. Interaction with peers, so you can also have one-on-one interaction with peers, okay, group discussion and one-on-one interaction with a partner game type of thing. Problem solving or case study, if you give, suppose this would have, what would have happened if, okay, so giving that if situation in the class, and again reflection, what would have happened, or if not this then what. So reflecting on that thought, why do you think, uh, or what do you think, why did you give this answer. So this is all comes under reflection. Plan to check for understanding, so think about specific questions you can ask a student in order to check for understanding. Now the process over, okay, learning activity is over. Now you have taught it in the class. Now how will you get to know that whether your students have understood the topic or not. So you have to plan some questions, okay, or some exit tickets, some activities which will help you to understand whether your children have understood it or not. Maybe taking a very simple example of living and non-living, as I took the this topic earlier. So suppose you have made some chits, okay, and you have distributed it among your student and asked them to make groups of living things and non-living things, and if they have done it, you get to know it there then and there in the class that the topic is clear or not, right? Or you can also plan, maybe in maths, if you are doing some activity, maybe addition, so you can quickly give them some mental maths to give you the answer, or you can just throw a few sums and then they can give you the answer of it, right? So there are various activities that you can plan to to check the understanding of the topic. Now write them down. So if you are taking this in the class, you have to be very 360-degree view of your class, and you have to be ready. You cannot go in the class without the proper planning of the lesson. You cannot think, okay, I'll go to the class and I'll just ask few questions. No, you cannot. So you have to be planned enough. Always carry your lesson plans to your class, because this is what which will give you a way out. Okay, this is the stair on which you will climb, and you will take your students along with you in this journey. So and this also gives you help in your class if you are not able to recall what you have made. So you can just flip your lesson plan and here you go. So you have to be ready with it. So write them down. Write that specific questions in your lesson plan. Okay, paraphrase them to ask the question in different ways. Now if you are asking a question, if you have made that monotonous question, and always keep in mind the Bloom taxonomy, which I have told, and I have shown a chart of the verbs. So keep in mind, because you cannot also ask lower order thinking question. Now lower order thinking question is the remembering based question, which they need to learn and recall. Okay, rather pushing your students slowly to paraphrase the question and ask your question in a different way, so that you are pushing your student little bit towards higher order thinking skills too. Okay, try to predict the answer. Now see, you are still not there in the class, you are in a planning stage and you have made few questions. Also answer the question by yourself. Okay, because you know the understanding of your student, you know the level of understanding, you know how smart your students are. So you need to predict the answer also. So if I ask this question in my class, what could be the reply, or what could be the answer of this student? So you need to think that ways also. Okay, and also you need to be prepared for your class. Your student may ask you some question where you can get stuck. So you have to have that command over your language and your subject well. You have to be, ready for your class. So you have to research, you have to know more about your lesson before taking it into the class. And if you again, after researching, after knowing your subjects well, and you think that maybe you get stuck in the class, never mind, tell them, okay, I'll get back on this tomorrow, then come back, research, and go to the class. See teachers, it is very often happening that if you are teaching from so long in your system and teaching the same concept and same class year after year, you tend to feel that you know it all well. Okay, but then with the changing scenario and the changing group of student which is coming up updated in your class, so they are looking for something new. You cannot go with the thought that you know it all. Okay, sometimes a teacher also learns from the student, and you all must have felt this in the class. So decide on whether you want the student to respond orally or in writing. So this is also very important. Like when you are checking on the understanding of your student, just make sure, how are you going to check the understanding? You want to throw them some open question, or do you want to ask them to write something maybe on a piece of paper or on a slate and show you, or on a show me board and just scribbling and showing you, or are you going to prepare some assessments of that particular topic? So this is on you. How are you going to check the understanding? And this topic or this content is very important. Why? Because this will give you the base to plan your next day or the further classes. So it is a very good idea, teachers, that when you are teaching maybe a small content of that particular lesson, then you could create some exit tickets. So what are exit tickets? Exit tickets are something, some sort of assignments or the activities which helps you as a teacher to understand whether your concepts have reached to the student, or how many of them have understood, or how many of them need more help in understanding the concept again. So this will also give you a base on constructing your further lesson. Do you want to repeat the lesson? If the percentage of understanding is very low, then it will help you to work on your lesson plan and reteaching it in the class. Or if it is good, most of them have understood, then you can go ahead with only keeping few of them with you, maybe giving them extra time in understanding that lesson, or planning some activities which can quickly you can do it in the class before you start the new topic, or maybe the further lesson. Now develop a conclusion. Summarize the main point of the lesson. So suppose if you have taught maybe the definition of noun, okay, or your lesson today is just the identification of living and non-living, or maybe a poem you have thought of teaching maybe 8 lines of the poem, then summarize the main point of your lesson. So this is what I am going to check today in my class. You may ask your all the student to write down on a piece of paper, so they can write it, or you can as I told you, you can make some assignments to get a quick review of your lesson. Review the students answer to gauge their understanding of the topic. Now after you have collected it, you need to go through it, okay, to see, to understand how much percentage of the students have understood the topic. So as I told you, the activity, you can go in go with, if a good lot of students have understood the topic, you can go ahead with the further lesson, or if not, then you need to review, replan your class and retake the lesson in the class. Explain anything unclear the following class. This is also very important. If you find that all the topics what I have taught was clear, but there is some misconception, okay, so do not leave that misconception untouched. You have to plan that misconception the next day, the following day in your class.
Yes, Mamta ma'am is facing internet issues and even I faced internet issues. I'm so sorry. Mamta ma'am got logged out. Yes, there's some network glitch. We'll wait for her to join in back. Thank you, teachers, for your cooperation. Sudha ma'am, let's wait for Mamta ma'am to get in. She'll able to answer your question. Anila ma'am, sorry, you can't get the PPT because it's the facilitator's property, so we can't share it. If you need, you can take a screenshot of all the slides ma'am was presenting. Yes, ma'am, you can have the recording of the session. Just a minute, I'll just share the link of. Yes, here you go. We have a YouTube channel and there you can find our recording for each and every session. Yes, it's on YouTube. Yes, Mamta ma'am have joined now.
Yeah, thanks. Am I audible, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just a minute here. Sorry for the inconvenience, dear teachers, and thank you for cooperating with me and showing that patience. So let me take you back where I left. Okay, so yeah, review the student answers to gauge their understanding of the topic. So once you have received the the write up of the student or the answers of your student, you need to review. Why review is important? To understand that what are you going to take further in the class. Now explain anything unclear the following class. So after reviewing the answers of your student, you need to understand and check that what is not clear. And in the next class, you need to take this forward. You need to clear this misunderstanding of the student, or you need to cover the topic which was unclear the previous class. Now create a realistic timeline. Now for a class, you have to prepare a timeline which is realistic. Now what is a timeline and what does the timeline contains? So narrow down your list of the 2 or 3 key concepts or ideas or skills you want your student to learn for that particular day. Okay, prioritize learning objective will help you to make decision on the spot and adjust your lesson plan as needed. Now, what do I mean by on a spot? On a spot means what is the main idea behind that lesson on the ground of the learning objective. So you have planned your learning objective. If after the lesson you want your student will be able to frame sentences, maybe using new words, okay, or the 4 new words which you have taught in the class. At the end of the class, you want your student to frame that simple sentences using these words which you have taught. So what activities you have planned has to be around the achieving the learning objective. Okay, so this will help you to decide on what is the skill you want your student to understand, and also plan your learning activities accordingly and adjust your lesson plan. A realistic timeline will reflect your flexibility and readiness to adapt to the specific classroom environment. Now, if you have planned your lesson well beforehand, you have ample space by understanding your students, and also you know what question, as if you will take care of all the previous point which I have discussed with you, then it will help you to be flexible with your approach in the explaining of the particular topic in the classroom. Now, this is what I'm talking about when you are going to plan that realistic timeline. Estimation of time, which is very important. How much time you are going to give on what particular activity, right? Breaking up of activity. So this activity will go as an introduction. This will be as a the base of the maybe the main concept clearance. This will be this activity I will do at the end of this, or keeping few activities in hand to use it to be flexible in your class. Now plan a few minutes at the end of the class. Plan an extra activity, as I told you, to be very, very flexible. Okay. So this is the timeline of the realistic timeline for planning of your lesson. Now, as I told you, I will touch few points, not all, but few points of the in the class and after the class also. So what I have told you, it was regarding the before the class. Now presenting the lesson in your class, letting your student know what they will be learning and doing in the class will help them more to get more engaged. So when you go to the class, you probe them to reach to the topic, right? Now you write the learning objective in the class on the board. Why? To establish that connect in the class, right? So you can tell your students, after this activity or after this lesson, you will be able to frame simple sentences, maybe using he and she, or you will be able to identify nouns, or you will be able to solve few sums of addition. Okay, so this is what your learning objective. Write a brief agenda on the board. Now, what is agenda on the board? What are the few points you are going to take in the class? Okay, this becomes the agenda of the day. You have to write the agenda on the board. Okay. So plan for lesson closure. Now it's time to, wind up your class. So you have to review what you have taught, tie that loose ends. Sometimes what happens when you are teaching it in the class, you tend to feel that ye bahut achhe se nahi hua, right? So you need to bring all of the topics what you have taught in the class and to a main conclusion. Okay, correct students' misunderstanding then and there. If it is possible, you can correct it then and there by giving examples, or so also, like you can say, so children, today we talked about, okay, so this will come under your lesson closure. Today we talked about Harappan civilization. Okay, ask students to summarize. Okay, can any one of you tell me what is a Harappan civilization? What have you understood about it? Asking a student to write on a piece of paper. You can also, as I told you, you can do it orally or in a written manner. Reflecting on your lesson plan. So this comes in the last section after the class. Take a few minutes after each class to reflect on what worked well and why. So was there any activity which your student liked? Oh, what is the one thing that worked well? It was wow moment of your class, right? What you could have done differently? If not this, then what else? So you need to reflect on your lesson. Identify successful and less successful organization of the class time. So you have planned well, you have structured your lesson well, but when you went into the class, there came something out of the way which disturbed all your flow. So what could have been done better to avoid that distraction? So all these things you have to keep in mind while you are making the lesson plan, or you are planning to take your lesson plan into the class. So teachers, I hope I did justice with you with all that glitches in between the session, and I was able to explain these important points and which will help you to plan your lesson well and take your lessons back into the class with more planning, more flexibility, and more understanding. So if you have any question, you can ask me.
Yes, thank you, Mamta ma'am, for such wonderful session. Wanted to ask the question that can you provide a sample lesson plan on any English topic?
So I do not have it handy now with me, but then if you can take the contact details of mine, or then I'll be surely forwarding it to you.
Okay, then we'll take this question to the another session where you can provide some sample lesson plans. And can you please provide a specimen of some SSC lesson plan for entire day or chapter wise?
See, I can just provide the framework of that, okay? And on the same framework, you can work as per your need and your level, the student which you have, and you can plan your lesson there using that template.
Okay, and can we get the model of lesson plan?
This is the similar question which I have. Or there is one question here with, I guess, Neetu. She asked that now that we are in post-pandemic era, how does the lesson plan changes? I would like to give answer for this. So, Neeta ma'am, as I told you that in my session, I was talking about the content, right? Content delivery and what content you can take it into the class. So you can use it if you I don't know you joined my previous session or not on the flipped learning which I took. So what you can do is you can plan your lesson. You can divide your lesson or the topic into various sections. You can send them something beforehand for the student to read or maybe to watch any video and then come prepared to the class, so that you can establish a good discussion back in the classroom when the students join back, as now they are coming back, and you have also done a good lot of research during your online sessions while you were taking the online session during the pandemic. So why to leave that all things? So bring that into the class, use it as a flip learning, give the material to the student beforehand to read and to research and come back. Okay, so like this your lesson plan changes.
Okay, more people are asking about your lesson plans about various subjects. So I request you all to please fill up the feedback form and give us the suggestion like how more subjects or how more topics we can take for lesson plan. So for about that we'll what we can say, a lot more sessions to Mamta ma'am, and then she can clear all your doubts. So the
Yes,
feedback
please.
form link is already in the chat box. I've pasted it once more. And yes, the questions are regarding the same lesson plan only, that you can provide the lesson plans of every subject. Okay. Yes, that's it. Thank you so much, Mamta ma'am. Thank you every participant for being with us, for being consistent, for being interactive. And please fill up the feedback form, and then only you will be able to get the certificate within 7 working days. Yes, the feedback form link is once again in the chat box. Thank you, Mamta ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, teachers, for attending. Please fill
Thank
the
you.
feedback form. Thank you.
And if you wish to see the session again, it's already on YouTube. The link has been pasted in the chat box, so you can go through that as well. Thank you. Have a good day.